What's up, y'all, and welcome to a brand new ShawnSetGO video. In this one, we're going to be talking about the brand new Season 2 Zekvir. So for those of you who haven't participated in Zekvir, I personally think that Zekvir has a lot of flaws. I think there's ways that Zekvir could be a fun group fight, but often it is scaled too difficult to where it's very punishing and doesn't really have a lot of room for not just room for error, but it feels like if you get the bad set of RNG, which is often the case of abilities, whether that's a fear or a frontal or a spawning of an egg, it just feels extremely unfair. So let's jump into this video and talk a little bit more about the new Zekvir, but we're going to mix in some of that topics about the old Zekvir. So first and foremost, so Season 2 Zekvir, the Underpin mech boss is what we're looking at here. So Zekvir Season 2, abilities and rewards. So during Season 2 delves into a quest line, we learn that the Underpin has stolen Brand's hats, and you are tasked to recover it. The main objective of defeating the Underpin quest is to increase your item level to challenge the Underpin in his Tier 8 delve with Undermine. We data mine multiple skills tied to Underpin. It seems that the allies have a chance to wander into your delve, and defeating the group upgrades the Nemesis strongbox found in the treasure room. So the Underpin's abilities. So Underpin attempts to crush his enemies with full force, dealing 50 physical damage to players caught in the area and stunning them for 4 seconds. Brutal stuns. If you know anything about current Zekvir, those fears and or the stun whenever you get webbed by the ads, they are deadly. Underpin attempts to set his foes ablaze, inflicting 2 fire damage every 0.5 seconds within 15 yards in front of him. So if you get caught by that little stun there, then it's going to be brutal whenever you get the flamethrower on you. So it also inflicts 20 fire damage to all players in a 40-yard cone in front of the Underpin, and causes all players in an area to burn additional 3 fire damage. So deadly cone. If not, the dot will kill you. So maybe less damaging, but the dot will kill you. The Underpin signals for his cronies to assist him, a 2-second cast, 1.5-second cooldown. So there's definitely going to have ads as well. Molten Cannon. Underpin's cronies power up his Molten Cannon and fires a powerful orb of molten lava. We've seen these probably in Stonewall, is what I'm guessing, is the similar look to those. A molten lava at the player's location, which inflicts 30 fire damage and knocks back all players caught in his path. So a knockback as well as a stun. And then Underpin's crony attempts to disperse nearby players with its shield, inflicting 30 physical damage and knocking back players in the area. So additional knockbacks. So it looks like a lot of positional things similar to Zekvir. I mean, Zekvir was unfortunate just because a lot of it was conals that are quite wide, especially if you're, I'd say, medium to long distance away. If you're close, it's not so bad, but whenever you start to move towards ads and then he's about medium ways away, it's very hard to avoid, especially when he starts putting those fears in a circle around him, around the corners. So this feels very much like that, where you're getting sort of knocked around and you're getting very vulnerable to being hit by flamethrowers, especially when you're getting stunned as well. That's kind of brutal. And then Black Blood Cannon. Underpin's cronies power up his Molten Cannon and fires a powerful orb of molten lava at the player's location, which inflicts 0 fire damage and knocks back all players caught in its path. Oh my gosh, is that another knockback? Jeez Louise. The Underpin diverts his mech's energy to shields, powering it down while it attempts to recharge, absorbing 10% of health. So it has a shield phase. It's got a shield break phase. Oh no. These make the fights very, very long. Let's see. It says, oh, so it does take a 100% increased damage while powered down. If Underpin successfully recharges, his mech heals for 25%. I think Zekvir was what, 10%? Actually, it feels like more sometimes. So maybe it's more. Disrupting Underpin's attempt to recharge his damaged mech, causing it to spill oil nearby every 0.5 seconds for 5 seconds. What does the oil spill deal? Damaging Underpin's mech causes it to spill oil, which causes the player within it to slide. So you're getting knockbacks and slides, and you're getting punished. for beating his phase with an additional mechanic. That's brutal. Of course, completing Let Me Solo Him the Underpin by defeating Underpin in a layer on tier ? Without any other player in your party before release of next season of Delve rewards. And then Delve's Gob-Trotter schematic gold. So he's the Gob-Trotter. So you have a few rewards as well that come with that, but talking about Zekvir a bit, this doesn't have a ton of comments. This actually just came out just like an hour ago, but it says looks like his heal is a DPS check instead of an interrupt, which makes it harder to solo. So if you've ever done this in a non-DPS class, it's very, very challenging. This is why something like this doesn't have a gear reward is puzzling. I'm not saying it needs to be Mythic Piece, but something in Heroic Curio would be very cool. Yeah, honestly, this kind of stuff makes you wonder why this kind of stuff is such a... It's definitely a gear check for sure, but it's kind of confusing as to why it's such a challenge, but then it's like cosmetic rewards. Like you just did it. It just means that you had the gear and did it. But I don't want to say it's just a gear thing, but I'm just saying like there's a minimum barrier to entry with gear. Let's see. It says healers just can't catch a break on anything solo. At face value, it looks very similar to Zekvir. The main difference is there's a shield to break and a slipping mechanic. The rest is the same. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's more about knockbacks here, but it seems like instead of getting punished with a frontal cone, you're getting punished with a flamethrower. So about the same. I would say it's different enough to where the mechanics would feel different. But my honest, and this is what I truly wanted to make, or why I wanted to make this video, is because I feel like as much as Zekvir is a challenge that is inevitably doable, it feels like an extremely unfair fight. The fear gives you just enough time to run out of it if you're at any disadvantage positionally, or if you're just in a corner of the room, not necessarily because you want to be, but because the ad is there. It feels like the fight is done. So you use your first ability that you have to get out of that. So you say you use Avatar in my case. So that'll help you remove slow snares, and I use it or I'll use a heroic leap. Sometimes you have to use both depending on how things turn out for you. So if I use one or both of those abilities, say for that next cone, and I'm about medium a ways away, I'm dead. I'm gonna get killed by the frontal cone. Even if it's not the one that's the one shot with the spikes that come out of the ground, the one that shoots the web is inevitably gonna kill me, because unless I pop every defensive, I'm not gonna survive. I have to pop every defensive. I also have to get the potions on the ground immediately. And if that comes while an ad is spawning, I'm dead. So it begins to feel like you use stuff to avoid mechanics. Say you're not in the most optimal positioning, and that's totally normal. You're avoiding the mechanic, you're using the ability, and then he'll use another ability that puts you in that same scenario where you need that ability. So you feel like you're in a situation where you have to save your abilities, or your toolkit does not have enough abilities to constantly use it, and it's like a 2-minute or a 3-minute cooldown. And then all of a sudden you need that ability again. So you feel like you're saving your cooldowns, but if you don't use them, you're most likely not going to be able to kill the ad, which is going to kill you. Like there's very few scenarios where you can actually kill the ad after it spawned. If you can somehow get it before it casts that ability out on you to stun you for, I think, like 5 seconds, then great. But also, even if it's at 1 health, once it spawns, it's going to be at like 30% or something health. It's going to be at a decent amount of health to where you still have to DPS it longer. And the longer as a prot warrior, or even if you're not a prot warrior, the longer that you're waiting and not casting defensive and instead you're casting them on DPS abilities, the more and more damage you're going to take. And so sometimes you have enough spare rage to do both, but often you don't. And if you know anything about Prot Warrior, or really any tank whatsoever, there are abilities that you have to have up at all times. And if you don't, you're going to take too much damage, you're going to die. And so these situations with these boss fights, it begins to feel very unfair because you're using your abilities to avoid things, but then they're coming up so often, or they're coming in such a rapid succession, like within a 5 seconds time. Like within the ad spawning, this is what typically happens to me. The fear will typically come first. And so if that comes first, great. I can run out of it as I'm running to the ad. Once I get to the ad, though, if say he immediately casts his frontal cone, I'm about halfway into that frontal cone. I'm gonna have to run much a longer distance. I've already had to sprint. I probably had at least try to charge once back to the mob because I need to start DPS in the mob. The quicker I DPS, the more likely that Bran is likely to switch to that ad. If I don't, I'm done. I'm like if Bran doesn't help, if one of those frontal cones doesn't get turned off to the side, or if he does the third thing, which is start casting his heal ability, I have to charge again. Yes, I have a few of those, but eventually I'm gonna burn all my charges. I'm gonna burn my pummel as well, and then eventually I'm gonna have to use Avatar. If I have to use Avatar to get increased damage, or say I pop all my damage abilities and it's still not quite enough, then the ad spawns and then I'm dead. So it feels like you're in this situation where it's like, yeah, if you get the perfect rotation, you may get lucky and still be able to avoid all the mechanics, but often it's less of your ability and more of, did Zekvir pop all those mechanics at once, or did they pop in? Did they go off in a certain order with enough time for you to either react or shift, and then everything kind of being on such a quick and tight timer? It doesn't feel like this is a final challenge. It just feels like it's a battle of attrition, whether you can get the right set of RNG mechanics to go off in the proper order. Whether the mob spawns directly under Zekvir or it spawns in a corner and you're like, well, I guess this run is done. You get maybe, I'd say, like one mess up where you can recover from in some of the fights, but in most cases, even if you're not necessarily messing up, but you just don't have the cooldowns to say get rid of a slow, you're done. And so it feels like this fight is adding more of that, if not just kind of switching it around, and making it to where now instead you have even more of a DPS check, even more forced movement that you have to adjust to, and then additionally still having a phase where it feels like if you do not pass this phase with enough damage while you're still dealing with things you have to avoid, knockbacks you have to avoid, frontals you have to avoid, then you lose. And so it begins to feel less of a challenge and more of an unfair challenge, wherein that if you have, if you have 639 item level, yeah, sure, you can do it, it's fine. But if you have anything less, then you're not going to be able to. So that's where I'm coming from. I feel like often these fights are designed to be something you can spend time in as a challenge for yourself, but like many situations outside of, I would say, the delve experience, where you're kind of just dying a lot, whether it's mythics, raids, or in this case Zekvir's challenge, it feels like you're just investing your gold into repair bills. I want to try this day in it, like I want to try this until I can complete it, but I'm spending like 2,000-3,000 gold in an attempt to clear it. I know I could clear it if I did it perfectly, but often the RNG of mechanics that you deal with in those fights is what kills you, and how quickly they're grouped together, or if it's, oh well, the ad's in the corner, I got one of the mechanics and I avoided one of the mechanics on the way there, but I know another one's coming, and right after that, say I avoided both of those, no problem, I don't have to use any cooldowns. Immediately after that, I'm gonna have to charge back and then interrupt this cooldown and then go back, and then by that time the ad is spawned, and it's just like, well, this is a loss already. So it's like, so it often feels like it's not balanced or made well, and considering that we're nearing end of season 1. It feels like there was really not any changes that made it more doable or more reasonable. Now I would say the single question mark one was able to do it just fine. But once again, it felt like a DPS check. I literally did it on the way, waiting for my group to come by. I was like, you know what? I'll do a single question mark. I'll do the tier 1 Zekvir challenge on the way. And I was able to do it no problem. So the gap between 1 and 2 kind of, like, I get that it's going to be different, but it feels like there's no room for error, and there's things that you can't control in the fight that just make it unfair. And then the repair bills are just astronomical, especially for plate wearers. That's like the plate tax. Like, the plate tax is brutal. It makes it to where tanks have even less reason to run things. Like, there's no reason for a tank to do anything, just because any error is going to cost you thousands of gold. I basically spend every day that I play WoW doing world quests just to get money for either repair bills or or some sort of thing I'm trying to fund at that moment, just to kind of then do my regular play. You know, like, all right, I'm gonna need to get some money so I can get enough repair bills so I can do mythics for today and just do that. So it kind of feels like the game almost punishes you for just trying this as well. So I don't want to see that continue into this, and it seems like that's kind of what we're getting. Now, is the boss, like, the style of it cool? Like, 100%. I feel like it seems very enjoyable. But 4-second stuns with conals, with knockbacks all around, with a DPS check phase, it feels like more of the same. So I personally have not been a fan of the Zekvir challenge, and I think that it needs to improve, but I'm just one person opinion. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? What do you feel about the Zekvir challenge? And what do you feel like needs to change in this new and upcoming one to make it more fair? Because the idea of this is that it's supposed to be soloable. I know it's an achievement, but it should inevitably be soloable. But I'm sitting at I'm level 624, and I'm like, it's possible, but I'm gonna have to probably spend about 10,000 gold before I can get this, and it's gonna be back to back attempts before I get it, and that kind of feels like unfortunate. It doesn't feel fun or fair by that point. It just feels like, oh yeah, I hit the proper arrangement of mechanics. It's like the stars so aligned, you know, or something like that. So let me know in the comments, of course, if this video was helpful, or if you enjoyed this video. Please do give it a like, subscribe to the page while you're at it, for more World of Warcraft content, The War Within. And as well, thank you all for all the support. Haven't been streaming a whole bunch lately, just a lot of stuff going on life-wise, but streams will resume eventually, so they'll be coming back soon. So hope to see you live as well, but until next time, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.